Hello, everybody. It's been a long time. I think it's been probably at least a month since the last time we did this. It's 4 o'clock Pacific time, which means it's time for another drink. And I'm excited this week. I'm excited every week, though. What do I say? I like drinking. Um, Interesting. My arm is kind of biotic, so I've been taking a little bit of break from these things. In fact, I've been taking a break from everything. Um, I ended up tearing all the tendons of my right bicep off the bone, which is a lot of fun. I'm about 4 weeks into this thing right now. Can't lift any more than a pound, which sucks. I just got the hard cast off a little bit ago. At least now I can move my hand and stuff, which is cool. But I've learned 3 different things about an injury like this that no one should have to learn. One is how to wipe left-handed when you're right-handed. It doesn't feel natural. I'm just telling you right now. The other one is blowing your nose with one hand is truly bizarre. Maybe some of you have grown up doing it. I haven't. It's tough. It's weird. And then most recently, over the last week or so, how to make a good drink left-handed when you're a right-handed person. And that's what I've been doing. So I'm back in the swing of things. This drink's really fun. So this is a variant of the Gin Rickey. Rickeys have been around for a long time. In fact, the original Rickey wasn't even a Gin Rickey. We're going to get into that because I love this story. The story of the Gin Rickey, or the Rickey, just in general, is actually super interesting. This is actually a drink born out of politics. And so what more perfect time for the Rickey than now, right? It was invented by Colonel Joe Rickey. And his story, when it comes to the drink, starts on Friday, November 30th, 1883. Now, Rickey, or Joe as everyone called him, was a Democratic lobbyist and was extremely charismatic. And he was accustomed to being the center of attention. And so he and kind of a bunch of folks were at this bar called Willard's in Washington, D.C. Grover Cleveland had just been elected to the president as the new president of the United States. The Democrats had just gained a majority in the House of Representatives. And so there was a lot of hubbub at Willard's. And all the hubbub was about, who's going to be the Speaker of the House. And there were 2 people at the time who were being considered seriously for the Speaker of the House. And one was a gentleman by the name of Samuel J. Randall. And he was a favorite. And he was evidently a long time kind of blue blood. And everyone assumed that he was going to get nominated to become the new Speaker of the House. And there was another gentleman, John G. Carlisle, who was a Southern gentleman who was an incumbent, who was kind of a firestorm. Young guy, new guy to politics. Kind of an upstart and he definitely wasn't an established kind of guy, right? Now, one thing about Colonel Joe Rickey is that he never made a bet that he couldn't back or that he didn't know about. He was the kind of guy that always had insider knowledge about everything he was going to wager on. Or do in his life, right? Even when he was an actual colonel, right? So he actually bet that night at Willard's $1,000 against a $500 bet that Carlisle, this upstart, would be nominated to be the new Speaker of the House, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, it's a sucker's bet. Of course, we'll take that bet." Right? So Colonel Joe Rickey is betting $1,000 of his dollars against $500 of your money to say Carlisle is going to win. And everyone's like, "Oh, that's a sucker's bet," right? Especially since Randall was the incumbent. Randall was the guy that everyone thought was going to get nominated. But sure as anything, Rickey seemed to have some inside information, and John G. Carlisle did indeed get the nod, right? It was a fool's bet for Rickey. He knew what was going to happen. And sure enough, Carlisle won, as did Rickey. And his win was pretty substantial, right? It was $1,000 to $500, so he won $500, which at the time in 1883 is equivalent to about $11,000 today. So needless to say, he's pretty happy. And so he and this kind of, political rat pack or whatever decided they were going to go out and they were going to just tie one on and have a great time. They're living high on the hog. So they started out with a very fine dinner. That dinner turned into a very boozy breakfast, which went into a boozier lunch and another dinner. So 24 hours of constant hooping it up, drinking and celebrating, right? The following morning, after a little sleep, they adjourned to a local bar called Schumacher's. And the idea was to get ready for the day to come because they wanted to make it over to the Capitol to see the proceeding and the swearing in of the Speaker of the House and all the pomp and circumstance that went along with that, right? So for all the charisma and insider knowledge, though, Rickey was still not immune to hangovers. He gets them just like everybody else. But he did have insider knowledge for the cure. And that was a little bit of hair of the dog, right? And this is the stuff I love about this story. I actually pulled a couple quotes from couple different articles. And this is, allegedly what he said. Gentlemen, Rickey announced, as he did with his following around the room in the bar, I'm going to invent a new drink now and here. I don't know what it's going to be, but I feel that any of the old ones would not be appealing. Pretty confident dude, right? And I think that in that moment of time, he knew that what he was about to do would be his legacy. This drink would be his legacy, right? So he went to the bartender, and he had the bartender, squeeze out some fresh lime juice, no pulp, no rind, just lime juice, in a glass, because he needed the acid to combat the headache and stuff that was going on. And the only place that he knew to find that was in the lime sublime. So started with lime juice. He poured that, he had the bartender pour that over some crushed ice. And then he drizzled some of the Barkeep's Finest bourbon on top of that. So this was the original Rickey. And then he added some carbonated water to really mix the lime and the bourbon together. And so they were thoroughly wetted, right? And this is my favorite quote from Colonel Rickey. Now, gentlemen, Rickey proclaimed, though we have not partaken of this drink, I know it is going to be something divine. And let us christen it the Rickey. As it may be one thing by which I shall be made immortal, let each gentleman lift his glass to his lips and his eyes to the heavens and say, we christen thee, O nectar, for all time known as the Rickey. Is that the shit or what? I love these stories. It's totally awesome. So the Rickey was born. Now today there are all kinds of Rickeys, right? That's the original Rickey. Super simple, and it actually sounds a lot like a whiskey sour if you pay attention, right? Because it's bourbon, it's lime juice, and it's soda water. Now, whiskey sour is a little bit different, right? You've got lemon instead of lime, and we typically use sugar, right, instead of soda. But it's pretty close. But there's all kinds of Rickeys. There's rye whiskeys, there are bourbon Rickeys, there are brandy Rickeys, and Gin Rickeys. And this particular Rickey is my favorite. It's kind of a riff I do off the Gin Rickey, and I call it Steve's Gin Rickey. I know it's amazing, the naming potential there for this drink. But I really like it. But there's one more story I want to talk about the Gin Rickey in particular. Colonel Rickey actually committed suicide in 1903. No one really knows why he did it. Some people think that he was depressed, but nobody really knows why. But before he died, he was living in New York, and this is about 1900, and he was sitting in a bar, and a patron came up to the bartender and said, hey, I would like a Gin Rickey. And of course, Colonel Rickey's sitting right next to him and says, Gin Rickey, sir, there is no such thing. I am from Missouri, sir. My name is Rickey. And I am the fortunate inventor of this matchless drink called the Rickey, and it is bourbon, right? So obviously the Rickey was famous a long time ago, but Colonel Rickey only liked bourbon Rickeys, right? And I think one of the reasons why it got so many different forms and so many variants is because it really adheres to our rules of drinks, right? You've got some type of a booze or a liquor. You've got some type of an acid, lemon, lime, something like that. And usually some type of a sugar. In this case, it's soda water, right? But the variants, I'm sure, happened, super quick and super fast. So let's get into this Gin Rickey. The first thing I want to do though, I don't think I've ever done a plug. I'm going to do a plug for this thing. About a year ago, I backed a lot of fun stuff on Kickstarter. I backed this thing. It's called the Elevated Shaker. It's by Elevated Craft. And this is the best shaker I've ever had, bar none. You should all go to elevatedcraft.com and buy one. I'm not getting paid for this, but this thing is awesome. So let me tell you why I like it. Right here, it's stainless steel, and it's double barreled, and insulated. Right. So usually when I shake stuff up, it's super cold, and you see the condensation on the outside. Not with this bad boy. It's awesome. Right. It doesn't get cold. You can fill this thing full of ice. It's not going to freeze your hand. Okay. The other thing I like about this thing is instead of popping off, everything screws down. You've got these nice washers here, and everything screws in here really nicely. So when your shaker gets really cold, and sometimes it's hard to pop the top off, no worries here. It's just a screw, right? And with my arm being so hosed up, you can tell it's super easy to screw and unscrew. The other thing I like is you can't really see it. Yeah, you can. So we've got these corrugated levels here. And one side is ounces and the other side is milliliters. And it actually acts as a measuring jigger, which is freaking awesome, right? So it starts at 1 ounce and goes all the way up to 6 ounces or 180 milliliters in this thing. And it actually measures half ounces as well. So this is super cool. And kind of the icing on the top is you've got a screw top filter. I love that. Instead of trying to pop that bad boy off, it just screws on and off super nicely. So I love this shaker. I really like it. I kickstarted it about a year ago. I just got this a couple weeks ago. And it's already my favorite shaker. I love this thing. So enough of a plug. But if you like to make drinks and you are looking for a new shaker, Elevated Craft, this thing it's awesome. Like I said, it's my new shaker. I'm going to use this all the time. So what do we need for the Gin Rickey? Well, we need gin. We need dry gin preferably. And the reason why dry gin is because with a lot of the American flavored gins, they kind of expand from just the normal juniper taste. And that tends to sometimes can actually make it taste better. Other times can kind of dilute the taste of the Rickey. In this case, I'm just going for a pure taste, right? So that's why I use dry gin. By the way, we talked about this in the previous one. Dry gin, London gin, they're the same. A lot of times it's London dry gin. Usually I use Beefeaters, but this time I went out and got some of this Costco London dry gin. Just because I needed some gin. I needed a dry gin. My wife was at Costco. She said, hey, look, I got this thing. It's I think it was $35 for a half gallon. And I drink enough gin. I'm like, sure, let's at least try it. If it sucks, I haven't really spent that much money. It's actually pretty darn good. So we got a dry gin. We have our freshly squeezed lime juice. Not so freshly squeezed. I squeezed this last night to prepare for this. We've got simple syrup, sugar water, right? Some soda water, club soda, and some fresh mint. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do, like with every good drink, you should always, if you haven't tried the booze you're trying, you should always try it. I'm using a bit of a different jigger this time. Just because I'm one-handed, it's easier for me to use this thing. I think I showed you guys, it's kind of the traditional American jigger. It's an OXO or an OXO one. I just got it from Amazon. But it's nice because it's flat. And it's got really easy measurements. So it's easy for me to use one-handed. This is actually pretty easy for me to do. But we're going to do a couple 3/4 pours. This is really good for solid and half-ounce pours. 3/4, I kind of have to look a little bit harder. And I just don't feel like doing it with one hand. So, but anyway, we're going to try some of this Kirkland gin. Because I'm a firm believer that you should try every booze straight before you put in a drink. It's actually really good. For a dry gin, Most people don't like gin because it tastes like you're drinking a Christmas tree. And I would argue that if it tastes like that, you're drinking some super cheap gin. Now, gin it's essentially vodka that's infused with juniper berries. And that's the flavor of gin, right? And a dry gin is pretty much just juniper. This Kirkland stuff is actually really good. It's not overly juniper-ish-y. It's super smooth. It's super light. Very easy to drink. Like could be a good sipping gin. In fact, it's funny. It's got a little bit of like the botanicals of what I would call a typical American gin. That's kind of off the straight path of a normal dry gin. So I'm not sure what the mix is. It'd be interesting to know who made this stuff for Costco. But it's actually pretty good. So if you're looking for a decent, dry gin, the Costco Kirkland brand, it's pretty good. So let's go ahead and start. First thing we're going to do, we're going to take some of that lovely mint. Okay, we're going to take the leaves. We're going to put them in our shaker. Okay, now I'm going to take, let's take 5 or 6 leaves. Let's take like 6 leaves and put them in there. Okay, and we're going to muddle them. Now remember, when we muddle mint, we don't want to smash it. We don't want to break up the mint. You want to carefully just kind of bruise it. What you're looking to do is you're looking to kind of express the mint flavor out of the mint itself without ripping the mint leaf up. Because if you kind of muddle too hard and you rip up the leaf, you're going to get chlorophyll in there. We're not using a lot of mint, so you probably wouldn't know anyway, but it can change the taste of the drink. So you just kind of want to be careful. You kind of just, twist gently. You'll be able to see the bruises on the mint if you're doing it the right way. And that's good. You don't want to see holes. You want to see bruises. Okay? Okay. So, muddled mint. That's good. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a ton of ice. Ice. Awesome. Got our ice in our shaker. Okay, let's start with the booze. We're going to add 2 ounces of dry gin. Oops, a little bit more, maybe 2.5 ounces. Not bad. More booze is not a bad thing. And the thing about this particular gin is it's actually pretty smooth. It's pretty lightweight for a gin. So, if you over pour, it's not going to like ruin the drink at all. Not that pouring too much booze is going to ruin any drink. Okay, let's take our lime. And we're going to put about 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice, right? Between 1/2 ounce and 3/4 of an ounce. Okay, and the nice thing about this particular jigger is everything below 1 ounce, it actually does in 1/4 ounces, and you can see it really easy, right? So we got 3 ounces, or 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice. Now we're going to use our simple syrup. Remember, this is just sugar water. It's just equal parts granulated sugar and water. Boil the water, stir it up until it's super saturated, or not super saturated, until the sugar totally gets dissolved. I got a little bit too much in there. I don't want too much. There we go. And then just put it in some kind of glass container. I think I told you guys this. I always put a little bit of vodka in here. And the reason why I put a little bit of vodka in with my simple syrup is because it lets it last longer, keeps it from molding. So you can have it in your fridge longer. It's a nice little tip. Don't put a lot of vodka in there. Maybe like, for every 2 cups of simple syrup, maybe a tablespoon of vodka, somewhere between, a 1/2 tablespoon and a tablespoon of vodka. Not a lot, but enough to, keep it from spoiling. Okay, so now we've got everything in our shaker. We've muddled our mint. We've poured our gin. We've poured our lime. We have poured our simple syrup. That's awesome. And now we shake. See, that's the one thing. Like before, you could always tell with my shakers that I've always used how kind of cold it was by feeling it. This one, it's insulated. So you don't get that, but it's totally awesome. Okay. Got that shaken. Totally awesome. Just screw that top off. We're going to grab a highball glass. We're going to fill that highball glass full of ice. Yummy, yummy. Perfect. Highball glass. Meat concoction. And I love having a strainer on my jigger or on my shaker. It's totally awesome. It's really good. It prevents you from having to get your own strainer or something like that. And this thing's awesome. I love that. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna take our club soda. We're gonna put a couple ounces, maybe 2-3 ounces of club soda in there. Top it off. And as a garnish, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a nice little mint sprig. Look at that. That's just a lovely little drink. Now, if you like cucumber, remember I told you there's a variant with cucumber? You can actually take a cucumber slice and muddle it with the mint. I'm not a big cucumber fan, but actually it works out okay. Cucumber kind of has a summery taste when you mix it with drinks sometimes. And this drink is definitely a light drink. You could also use a cucumber coin as a garnish, right? But I like mint. So this is the Steve Gin Rickey. 2 ounces of dry gin, 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice, 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup, shaken, poured over rocks, add club soda, 2-3 ounces of club soda, and a nice garnish of lime. Cheers. That's a super yummy drink. One thing about this drink, if you're not a big fan of club soda, you don't only have to add the club soda to it. It's a really good drink without the club soda. The nice thing about the club soda is it just makes it a much lighter, much more refreshing drink, mostly because it's diluting the alcohol. But the other thing is the club soda, it's not like adding water. The effervescence in it, the carbonation in it, actually kind of adds a little extra something. And club soda obviously doesn't taste just like water. It's got a little flavor in it, and it adds to the drink. So you don't have to use a club soda, but I recommend using club soda. If nothing else, and if you're going to be drinking a lot of these, you won't drink as many maybe? I don't know. So that is the Steve Gin Rickey. Hope you guys like it. I certainly do. I'm not sure how many more of these I'm going to be drinking tonight. I don't know. We'll see. But super good. Colonel Joe Rickey. Obviously, this was his legacy to the world. Thank you, Joe. So, don't know what we're going to do next week or if we'll do something next week. We'll see. Kind of as the mood strikes me. I actually found some really good bourbon cream. Maybe I'll make something with that. Maybe we'll make something like, as we're moving into the fall, maybe we'll make some BSB drinks. We talked about those before, some of these brown sugar bourbon drinks that you can only really make with brown sugar bourbon. BSB is cheap. You can get it for like $15-18 a fifth. It's not expensive. But the drinks I make, these harvest punches and these fall punches, they're really good. We haven't made any kind of white Russian or black Russian. Those are always super good, kind of in the fall. Those always remind me of the fall, the wintertime, stuff like that. So we may start getting into some more hearty drinks, as opposed to, gin drinks or vodka drinks. Although, the black Russian is a vodka drink, technically. But we'll see. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. It's been a long time. Hope you got something out of it. Steve's Gin Rickey, super awesome, super easy, super good, super refreshing. And Colonel Joe Rickey, God bless you for giving us this lime sublime drink. Cheers, everybody, and I will maybe see you next week. We'll find out. Bye.